I'm gonna reshoot this. The last one was a little long. This is for new grad nurses, specifically, but you could think about it as you're applying to nursing school or making a career change, or in nursing school, or a nurse and you want to change specialties, basically. It's a question of like which type of unit you want to go into, and basically your specialty there. I'm a medsurg nurse. I always thought I would be a ED or an ER or a peds nurse. Didn't really think of OR, PACU, ICU, or home care or visiting nurse or stuff like that, or infusion or any other type, hospice or onc. Actually, I thought of onc too. Thought of cancer, and I'm still thinking of cancer, to be honest. Not thinking of cancer, you know what I mean. But and I briefly thought about hospice. I dated a hospice nurse, and I was like, maybe. No, the few run-ins I've had with hospice as a med-surg nurse, because of either COVID or just happenstance or what have you, make it that I don't like that. I don't really like that. Peds is still okay because I've had so many kids. I've had 4 of my own, raised a stepchild, and I've had another stepchild. So I've had 6 kids over my time, and it's something I do enjoy. But in an acute setting, you always have to deal with parents and that aspect. And family is kind of glossed over in nursing school, and it's a big factor in the acute setting and outpatient setting too, which is where I kind of end up seeing myself, just because I can't do bedside for past 60. I just don't see my body keeping up with it on a day-to-day basis. Maybe on a per diem basis or something like that every now and then, but just not every day. It's just the way I nurse. And I was just taking care of my daughter. She had a brief bout with possible pneumonia, and taking care of it, and I was nursing, and she saw me running around, and I said, this is how I work. I treat my patients as I treat my kids. That's how the thinking is, and that's how I care for them. It's a very paternal aspect, and I run around, bustle around, but the reason behind that is I sprint for 3 hours. I'm a night shift guy, and then they're sleeping usually. I mean, I have occasional meds. Sometimes I have meds throughout the night, but at least the main meds, the main assessments, the main care is done. If there's a couple patients that require that through the night, then I'm bustling for 12 hours. Then that's just the way it is, and I'm exhausted, and then I'm giving a report and handing off and be done with it, If I'm coming back, then I'm screwed, that is just the way it is. But that's how I nurse. Your choice on specialties, all that said, going in is not written in stone. It really isn't written in stone. Those people say, oh, I got to pick right. No, you don't have to pick right. You have to pick. It's like I say about being a leader, being a manager and leading. You're not expected to always be right. You would like to be always right. The hope is there, not the expectation, realistic expectation. And you're going to get things wrong. You're going to guess wrong. Mistakes happen. We're people, So your choice is not so written in stone. And this is really pertinent to me, because my daughter just graduated nursing school. She's trying to pick. And I said, look, this is the different pros and cons of every field. There's certain ones she definitely doesn't want to go into. Camp nursing, no. School nursing, no. Home care nursing, no. There's certain ones. Long-term care nursing, no. She's seen that. She's done her rotation in that. I have friends in LTACs. They hate it. There are people that do it. There are people that kind of like it because it's predictable. You have the same patient for 10 years. They become family. You just know them. There's no changes. You see that. Take care of them. Some people like that. A lot of people don't. There are different aspects to every specialty. OR, it's like Jiffy Lube. You're gone, and there's 8 other patients through the day. Depending on what kind of procedures you're doing. Cardiovascular, you probably have 1 for that entire day. It's going to be in there, or maybe 2, depending on the level of cath. If it's cath lab, then you can have 5 in an hour. You're saving lives really quick. So it all depends. It's not to say one specific thing is going to give you this outlook. But speaking in generalities, I've been trying to sell my daughter on medsurg, just because it provides the broadest base. You have to know a little bit of everything, jack of all trades. Yes, master of none, but the whole quote I think requires is better than being just a master of one, because you're very specialized. And there's pros and cons to that. My girlfriend's a NICU nurse. She's uber specialized. NICU nurses, or PICU nurses, or any of them, are uber specialized, and you're going to get top dollar for that if you travel. I've heard of them getting 5 figures at the height of COVID, 5 figures a week. It's a godly amount of money. It's just like, what? Exceptions, far outliers, right? So far off to scale. You're going to get top dollar though, no matter what, because you're going to be more valued than a medsurg. A medsurg nurse, we're bumpkins. You can throw us anywhere. We're going to give you that level of care, not the NICU level of care. It's like I always say, there's A-Rod, and then there's utility infielders. We're utility infielders. We can play any position and give you decent. Except for the exceptions, like, ICU, we're not going to float to, although I have been floated. You're not going to get ICU, you're not going to get OR stuff, you're not going to get the extremes, okay? You're going to get anywhere in between. Renal, cardio, GI, ortho, neuro, pulmonary. You're going to get everything, peds even. Whatever. Those you're going to throw us at, it's not a big deal. So we're the grunts. But there's something to be said for being a grunt in that you can handle the situations. Sometimes we float down to ED even, float, you don't stay. I've had friends that float to ICU, you don't stay. Why that doesn't count to our experience level, I don't know. I had a friend go 6 months to ICU, and when she wanted to transfer, they're like, oh, you need more experience. And she's like, excuse the F out of me? There's 2 friends actually. They're like, we just finished 6 months with you idiots. Experienced nurses, 10 to 12 years, on average between them. I don't know exact numbers. At that time, they're more now, probably 14, 15 years now. And it was a height of COVID, so it was COVID rules, But then they turn around and apply that, so there's, you're zero to the hero and hero to the zero very quickly in this field, all right? But what you want to pick still doesn't absolutely determine your career trajectory, and this is the what I'm trying to really get to at. I hope it doesn't turn to be a longer video. I'm suggesting that to my daughter, medsurg, because that lays a good foundation. She wants to specialize like ICU, critical care. That's fine, and I said that's fine too. The problem lies in if you don't like it and want to come back to medsurg, it's a lot harder for that adjustment than medsurg to there. And I'll go to what my NICU girlfriend mentioned when she was precepting, a new grad, brand new, ink still wet on her diploma. She says, I'm teaching this person time management. That's not what I'm supposed to be doing. Because precepting at that level, you got to go. You have seconds, not minutes, not hours, seconds to spare with the baby, NICU. So you have a severe time crunch there. No time for second guessing. Time management is a huge thing. And med-surg level, it is the determinant factor of you progressing or staying in orientation or getting a green light. We've had people we've canned because they couldn't take it because they came from LTACs to med-surg even. And that is already a huge jump because they're used to dealing with the same patients day in, day out. There's nothing to chart. There's people that chart for them. There's a nurse that charts. There's a nurse that meds. A nurse that does. No, they have roles. Med-surg, you're doing all of them. You have to manage your time because you have 4 other patients, 5 other patients, 6 other patients, 7 other patients, 8 other patients sometimes. So you're 9, something like that. You have to take care of in your shift. And sometimes you don't have a tech. Sometimes it's just you. Old time nurses, they had more than that. No techs. It's just like, I'm like, oh my God, that's horrible. So the industry has progressed, and you have to time manage yourself. ICU, it's different. You have 1 patient, 2 patients, hopefully. There have been scenarios I've heard which go beyond that, and that's very unsafe. I'm going to leave that undiscussed at this point. Then you have emergency room. You might have 10, 12 patients, and you don't even know their names. You're like, who the heck are you? Whatever, huh? Or the patient disappears. Either they eloped or they got sent upstairs, and you weren't even told. So it's very, it's chaos there. In ICU, you've got a pressure cooker. You're keeping things under control. You've got 16 drips running. 0.8 mLs an hour. I'm like, what the fuck is that? You get more evaporates than that. What are you talking about? 0.8 mLs an hour. Ooh, it's like crazy. But all together, out of 16 drips, that one might be going 5, that might be going 10. And you're like, those are KVO, but not when you add them all together. You're bolusing at that point. 16 drips going at 5 mLs an hour. You got 90 mLs going. And normally you say, well, it's still 90. This person's got orifices that don't belong. We've made half a dozen new orifices on this person. And they're all going in. They've got central lines on each side. They've got the freaking chest tubes each side. They've got chest tubes where there shouldn't be chest tubes. They've got orifices. They got Foleys. They got rectal tubes. Everything. It's like, holy crap. This person's hanging on by a thread, and we're gonna put 90 mLs in them. Are their kidneys even functioning? No, they're not. They're hooked up to dialysis. They're gonna do dialysis every shift. It's like, what the heck? So you got extremes all over. That's what I'm saying, and that's why I suggest med-surg as the middle ground where most nurses go. Most of us will end up going, because that's like 80% or something like that of the industry. You can branch off later, is what I try to emphasize to my daughter. But to each their own. But I don't want you to think, hey, I've done ICU, I can't go back. You can. It's just more difficult. It's easier to go med-surg and then. That's why I think a lot of people end up doing med-surg also. Is that a lot of them end up being NPs, going to OR, going to ICU, going to ED. Some of them, especially ED, end up coming back, because the burnout rate is so great. I don't see that as often in ICU, but definitely from ED. It's just like, okay, I did 10 weeks, goodbye, I can't do this. Or 10 days and goodbye, I quit. I don't want to even be a nurse anymore. And there are other floors that happens to. I've talked to ortho nurses. They're like, I can't do this. I can't do this array anymore. It's done. I don't even want to be a nurse anymore. And I'm like, why did you become a nurse then? He's like, I like dealing with kids. And I was like, there's no kids here. I was like, ACLs or the rotator cuffs. We were on ortho floor at the time. I said, what are you talking about? go to the peds. They're like, well, I said, try peds out. If you don't like peds, then think about another career, because that was what you originally wanted. Go for that. She was a young nurse, and I would hate to have her throw away 4 or 5 years of her life. I was like, no, try it out. You might love peds. You said you liked it. That was the original reason. Ask for a transfer. If they won't take you, go to another facility and transfer. You can get a job. That's the one thing about nursing. You're never going to be worried about employment unless you're dangerous. They try not to be dangerous. That's what nursing school is supposed to prepare you not to be dangerous. Everything else, we're training you to be nurses. So anyway, that was my long ramble. I want you guys to understand the reasons why a lot of people go to med-surg, why it's a good choice. Not the only choice, definitely. It's maybe this is an appeal to my daughter to say, hey, try that. It's good. It's because I believe it layers the best foundation. And then from there, you can jump. You could be a skyscraper, be ICU or ED nurse and go right into it and stay there. That's fine. But if you don't like that and you want to end up going back to suburban living, it's a harder adjustment just because you're not used to doing that time. You got to kind of start almost back at square one, because you're going to know a lot more than a grad nurse, but your time management skill is going to be pretty much the same level. Okay. Whereas med-surg to ICU or ED, yeah, you're going to know more than a grad nurse going in there, but you also have time management. You're going to have time. And that's the key. That's the most important factor for a nurse. If you have a lot of time, you can do any of this stuff. The problem is a lot of times you don't have time. Like I said, NICU babies, you have no time. You're working with a negative clock at that point. You've got to somehow turn that positive to get ahead of the curve. It's the accident's already happened. You've got to then turn back the clock, and it's very difficult because they're born negative. They didn't cook the full 40 weeks. They're negative. 20 weeks, they're negative. 17 weeks, 15 weeks, whatever. So time is always the factor. If you can manage that as med surg, you're best taught that. So just good luck. Hope these little bits help you out in choosing a career. Good luck.